Hello and welcome to another edition of the Forza Napoli podcast. I'm your host, Joe Fischetti. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. On today's episode, we are going to review Napoli's 2-0 defeat to Manchester City in our return to the Champions League and Kevin De Bruyne's return to Manchester. I know it's been a little while since this match, but hopefully you still want to hear what we have to say. It feels like it's been a long time since our last episode. But I am joined by a guest to help me out with this review, Gianluca Spinelli. Welcome back. And let's just jump right into it because there's so much to talk about from this match, from Conte's tactics to the big substitution and the play of Vanja Milinkovic-Savic. But I think we have to start with Giovanni Di Lorenzo's red card. This was the big talking point. It was the turning point of the match. And even this red card, there are so many different aspects to it that we can talk about. We can talk about the tackle itself. We can talk about the substitution, as I mentioned, which we're definitely going to get to. But I want to just start with something that you shared with a bunch of us offline, and that was the possibility that Beukema may have been fouled, because the way this play kind of played out, there was a ball over the top. I think it was possibly even from the keeper that Beukema kind of comes around Haaland and wins the header, and then City win the second ball. They play a perfect through ball through back to Haaland, and Di Lorenzo commits the foul. But it did kind of look like Beukema was fouled as he was winning that 50-50 with Haaland.
Yeah, it was something. I felt like I was a little bit of a conspiracy theorist at first, but I was cutting the video and zooming in and everything. But it was really I felt like it was a routine, kind of hold up play foul where, center forward, it's a 50-50 ball and they're trying to hold up and he's spreading his arms and, commits a foul. But it was just, I don't know. I guess it wasn't obvious enough, and Beukema didn't complain. But in one of the angles, you see, I think it's Spinazzola kind of throw his hands up, kind of complaining. And I felt like that's also been a crutch of Napoli for many years. We're never one to complain about fouls enough. Where forgive me for invoking Juventus, but if this is them, immediately players are rushing to the referee and kind of forcing the play to end. And, I felt like, that could have been called back, especially if you're in VAR review. And I also hate, side note, I hate how on the big screen they have it say red card review, and not just VAR, it's plain and simple. It's either going to be a red card or it's not. And I guess we could, kind of jump into, kind of the nitty gritty of that. But yeah, that was a perfect pass, like you said. You couldn't have asked for a better placement of the ball. It really comes down to either absolutely perfect defending or a foul is going to be made when that type of pass is put on the field. And Di Lorenzo unfortunately waited way too long to make an attempt at the ball. We spoke offline about how he probably could have slid, kind of earlier to just prevent the pass, as opposed to waiting and trying to take it away from Haaland. Because at that point, it was more in Haaland's possession than not. And, it was really a matter of centimeters of him missing the ball. If he just scuffs it, there's really nothing to talk about. And the play goes on. And I think it was Frank that mentioned if Di Lorenzo just gets up, maybe nothing gets reviewed at all. So who knows, honestly, I guess, what could have happened. But
yeah, these days with VAR, I'll give you my thoughts on Di Lorenzo in a moment. But just to close the loop on the officiating, the official in this match did not get great reviews. You could even say the fact that he didn't make this call was kind of poor officiating. He was saved in a way by the VAR. Once that VAR call happens, he gets called to the monitor, we all know it. Like,
Yeah.
there's like a 95% chance this is going to be a red card. But you're right. Like, you have the big screen red card review. Oh, no.
I hated it.
Di Lorenzo desperately pretending he's injured. Somehow that's going to change something. I don't know. But you do, going back to the foul, you do kind of see Haaland's arm extend. And anyone who's played as a defender, like, I'm surprised Beukema was not more vocal about this, because you are kind of being put or forced to contort your body in an unnatural way to win that header when the attacker does something like that.
Okay.
And obviously we're Napoli supporters, so we're gonna like try to find a way to make
But how
this,
is
an
it? He's
error.
like house. This guy is a machine.
Mhm.
He's not like a frail man. Like, he is
Yeah.
really solid. So if he's sticking his arm out and it hits you in the gut, like, you're not gonna easily break that arm and get around.
Yeah, and the point I was kind of getting to is that if you're prevented from attacking that ball in a natural way, then you're limited in your ability to control where that ball goes, right? So maybe if he's not fouled trying to win that header, he heads that ball to another Napoli player, or in a safer place instead of straight back to a City player. So there's that. I do think, and we talked about this offline as well, that this is one of those plays where, had a foul been called, not too many people would have protested that either. It's just kind of like whatever the decision
We've seen
was.
Lukaku have this called against him time and time again all last season.
Mhm. Yeah, and maybe there's even a bit of kind of reputation involved, or headlines. Like, we knew heading into this match that if Haaland scores a goal, he'd be the quickest ever to reach 50 goals in the Champions League. Again, now I'm sounding really like a conspiracy theorist, but I don't know. In general, I wasn't hugely impressed with the officiating. There was also, an elbow on Anguissa, which I must admit, I watched the game twice and I missed it. I think I remember seeing him going down, kind of holding his face, but I went back to watch and I still didn't find it, but I saw it over the papers before. Yeah. So I don't know if that would have warranted a red. It's probably a missed yellow, but it just, again, supports the narrative that the officiating wasn't great. Now, you touched on Di Lorenzo. For me, the big mistake he made there were a couple of mistakes, but the big one was that he didn't make a play on the ball to intercept the pass. If you're going to slide, that's the moment. And you can just see, like, all it takes is a millisecond of a hesitation and you're cooked in that situation. That's basically what happened. He didn't make the move for the ball. Maybe it's because it's Haaland, he's intimidated, who knows. Again, perfectly weighted pass. It was kind of bending as well. That's an extremely difficult play to make. And then the second mistake he made was lunging for it after the ball got past him, really in desperation. I had a chat with Vincenzo after the match, and we were talking about whether, did he possibly even get a slight touch on the ball? But I think in that situation, it really doesn't matter, especially the way the game is officiated nowadays. I mean, maybe 10 years ago you can make that argument, but now it's been pretty consistently called that even if you get the ball first, if you're following through and taking out the player, which he did, that's still going to be given as a foul. And especially if it's such a minor touch on the ball that really didn't change the course or the path of the ball. Like, Haaland is still going to run free on goal there. But at that point, once the ball is past Di Lorenzo, I'd much rather him just let it go. You're hurting yourself more at that point taking a red card than you are, I think, even conceding a goal. And then the last thing I'll say about that specific situation is that it looked like Vanja was already well off of his line, and who knows, like, Haaland might have had to, who knows, maybe he dribbles around him.
Like, that's not an easy guy to get around right in your face.
Right.
My dad even said after the game, he was like, he's better off letting him try to score. Maybe it's better if they go 1-0 and we have 11 and we're able to play our game rather than taking the red card in that position. But I think, honestly, like, Joe, he was so close, and it was like his trailing leg hitting Haaland's trailing leg kind of like pulled him back.
Hmm.
And it felt like both of them had a lot of contact on each other. Obviously, Di Lorenzo threw his body in front of him, but they that like entanglement, uh, you know, kind of held Di Lorenzo back like that. That little hair that in between his cleat and the ball. It really was a shame. It ruined the game.
Yeah, it absolutely did. I've told you numerous times how wise your father is, so I'm glad he made the same point. But yeah, like I don't think it was by any stretch an easy play for Holland. There, obviously he's a world class player, and I'd probably still bet on him to score. But there was plenty of work to do in that situation.
For sure.
But that definitely changed the entire you know outcome of this match. The other big talking point from this whole situation was that Conte decided to remove Kevin De Bruyne. It took Oliveira an odd, bizarre amount of time to get ready to come onto the pitch. I don't know what, he's got to tape his entire leg up and all this stuff.
The entire time they're doing this review, they should just be warming up.
Exactly. You know it's coming. What are you doing? But anyway, the big question was, was De Bruyne the right guy to take off? Because obviously this was his big return to Manchester. He's a world class player. Do you agree with Conte's decision there?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? Like you said, the whole situation, right? Like he's returning to Manchester. He's Kevin De Bruyne, right? Like, and we're Napoli, and we're benching him, in a game where we do want to win, right? Like, every game we play, we want to win. Like, we definitely don't want to lose. So, initial reaction is like, like you kind of wish there's like a way where it could work, but like then like when you look at who's on the field, like Anguissa's a workhorse. He's all over. McTominay, the same. Granted, he definitely goes forward and he's a huge presence for us, in scoring goals and being involved in goals. But at the same time, he does work his way back, and he's a gigantic body, so he's good defensively on set pieces. So you see that, and then Lobotka, we're not going to talk about or compare Lobotka and De Bruyne. We know what Lobotka does, and we know why he was left in. He's not a pretty player. He's not a guy that's going to set up goals or anything. He's literally picking up scraps and getting people off the ball. So that's why he's in the game. I think you had said earlier online, we would never pull a defender in this situation. So and that leaves you with Politano and Holland and not Holland, Hoyland. But
yeah, the Timu Holland.
Yeah, for real. Literally, it's perfect. It's perfect. God really turns into that. That'd be great. But you need the reference point, like you had said offline with Hoyland. We need that, and he's so fast that the counterattack. What else? Where else are we left with that? And Politano, people were saying that he's the one that should have came off. And it's crazy that I'm sitting here saying, leave Politano on to line off.
Who would have thought we would get to this point? But yeah,
honestly, like the guy is a workhorse. He stopped the goal from happening, or shoot me down now, call me crazy, whatever. Like honestly, I feel like if Meret was in goal, that would end up being a Politano own goal. Like that was a very weird situation. I didn't even expect Vanja to save it. I thought that was going to be a goal. I was like, this is crazy, but it is what it is. Losing 2-0, 10 men down. 10 men down, 1 man down, playing with 10 against City in Manchester. Like you said, if someone told you before that we lose 2-0 without a red card, you'd be like, all right, we have to work some stuff out still. We're a good team in Italy, but Manchester City's a whole other story. So it is what it is. It's
Yeah,
a good move.
I think, for me, I just do like a process of elimination. And as you said, you can't take a defender out. And, we all kind of consider, even though Conte, he kind of contradicted himself after the match because when he talked about Politano and Politano coming out, he was like, Politano is not a right back. And I know what he means. He's a player that helps out a lot at the back, but he's a runner and he gets forward a lot too. So in that sense, he's not a right back. But we really do kind of use him as a right back. So if you consider him to be one of the defenders, and Conte said, once we went down a man, we knew we had to defend in a 5-3-1, and so Politano is your fifth in that situation, at least until he comes off in the second half. So that already takes away half the options. Then, as you said, you need Højlund as a point of reference. You always need a striker to just chase after long balls and press the defense. You're not going to press a ton, obviously, when you're down a man, but you need a striker. And so that really leaves just the midfielders. And again, it's not going to be Anguissa and McTominay because they run and they're physical and they're big. So it really comes down to De Bruyne and Lobotka. And I mean, I would have lived with Lobotka coming off, but I think, had this been much later in the season, or if this was our last match in the league phase of the Champions League, then, when De Bruyne has had a lot more time to get into the rhythm. Obviously, he's such a world-class player that he's settled in really quickly, but still, Lobotka's been doing this for 3-4 years now with Napoli. Yeah. So for me, I think we all just really wanted him to still be able to play against his former club, and that was really disappointing. He got a nice ovation coming off from the City fans. Yeah. But I also think, like, De Bruyne is most devastating in possession. Like, I don't think he's ever been thought of as like this world-class defender, right? And we were just put in a situation where we're going to have to defend for 70, 75 minutes with stoppage time. And so Lobotka, as a number 6, tends to do more defending than De Bruyne does as a kind of hybrid number 10 or whatever we want to call that position. So I get it. I think for me, the most disappointing thing out of all of this was just that we didn't really get to see how Napoli stacks up against like a top 5, top 3, maybe even club in the world, right? And that's because the whole match changed with that red card. But we did, I suppose you can say, get a glimpse of it in that first, 18 minutes of the match. I thought it was super tactical. For some, you'd probably find it pretty boring because not a lot happened. But what did you make of the way, like, how did you feel during that opening phase of the match before the red card?
Honestly, like I felt good in possession. Like, it wasn't like, we made so much happen, but we were kind of working up the wing and opening up Politano a few times, where he had opportunities through Di Lorenzo's lead passes, and we were kind of not letting so much happen. Like, City did have a little, obviously possession during those 18 minutes, and they were moving the ball around and they took some shots, but there were nothing that were cause for concern. They were kind of direct shots directly to Vanja. So it was, everything was kind of manageable, and we managed to get that opportunity with Beukema. And obviously we all wish it went similar to the Fiorentina match, but Donnarumma is a real the guy is incredible. It was a great save, like, and it's unfortunate because that happens, and let's say even the red card shortly after. It felt like it was immediately after that play, but could have been a whole different ball game, and it stinks. But I think, like you said, there was still some positivity there. this was a game that fully stacked without red cards, fully field the team. I did feel like we had a chance, definitely to get upset or even just steal points, if not win. Um, so, kind of, does, feel unfortunate that better half, well, more or less the entire game was played a man down, but it, we kind of looked good, like the whole, rest of the first half, we were able to lock it down and not keep them, from getting a goal. And it was unfortunate that whatever tactical changes they made it going into the second half, it felt like, right away that they were going to score a goal. So it's really, Napoli of years past would have probably let up a whole lot more goals. So I felt good about coming out of it, and the attitude of the team. And this was kind of like a motivational loss because we had such a high last year and did so well, and you know coming into this big game, starting off the Champions League return. Um, now we have something to really prove to everyone. So I think a lot of good could come out of it, and it's not a game that like we weren't prepared to lose already to begin with. So it is what it is.
Yeah, Conte said that a few times that he was really proud of his team, and he mentioned a few times that they came to play, and I think while City dominated the possession well throughout the match, but it also 11v11 in that opening 20 minutes, they never really threatened. As you said, there was that Reinders shot, which Vanja is so big, he doesn't even need to jump to tip that over the bar. Like it's going to take a lot to beat him from that kind of angle. Ruben Diaz had an effort that didn't come anywhere near the goal, and it was outside the area as well. Beukema's chance was actually the best chance either team had before the red card, and it was it was actually pretty funny because on the commentary, at least on the world feed, I think in the US it's probably a different broadcast, but the commentators were talking about how um, Donnarumma is known for, despite being such a big goalkeeper, he's not great. He's not a great leaper. He doesn't get much vertical. He doesn't come out and punch a lot of balls. But at the same time, he's such an incredible shot stopper. And then right after the commentator said that, we have a corner kick. He does not come out and challenge for it. Beukema wins the header, but he makes this incredible reaction save. And it was basically literally what the commentator had just talked about. So, it also sucks that they got Donnarumma like right before our match. It was
Couldn't get one break on that. Like this guy is such a freak of nature, and we had to go against him. Like such shame. Like 9 out of 10 goalies, have even if they get a hand on that ends up being a goal. Like, guy's a freak.
Yeah, it was a great header from Beukema. It would have been incredible if he had scored back-to-back matches with Rachmani injured. There was also some funny quotes from Donnarumma, both before and after the match, where he talked about how like his mother is a Napoli supporter, and it's going to be really difficult for her and not knowing who to cheer for. And then after the match, he kind of said like, "Well, who's gonna call my mom and let her know?" So, I mean. You might as well have a sense of humor about it. But I thought what was really interesting in that opening 20 minutes was I did a couple episodes ago, I did a kind of tactical analysis on how Napoli play, and we saw it again where when City had the ball in their own third, so when they were playing out of the back, at least in the opening stages of the match, we were actually pressing really high. At one point, even Buongiorno was like pressing in the City third. And then once they crossed midfield, everybody retreated and we defended in that usual kind of 5-4-1 or 5-3-2. And it was really, you can really see how everybody moved together. And even though City is incredible and they still played through the press, and we actually played through their press as well, which was also really impressive to watch, both sides playing through that high press. You can see how everybody moves together, and that's really important when you're going to press. And again, I think that's where Conte said we came to play. That's what he meant. Like, we did not come to this match, at least obviously we didn't anticipate getting a red card, and he pointed out as well, we didn't get a single red card all of last year. Now, granted, we're playing a lot more games this year. That's just how it goes. But I think what he meant was that even if Napoli did not get the red card, the game plan was not necessarily, well, we may not have had a lot of possession. It wasn't necessary to just sit back and soak it all up. It was going to be very tactical, and then try to take advantage of the opportunities, limited as they might be, when we did get the ball. A big part of the reason why this match stayed so low scoring was Vanja Milinkovic-Savic, which is going to be our favorite topic all year long. I don't even want. I'm trying not to make this like a Meret Vanja thing, because I do think they're both going to play. We're probably going to see Meret play against Pisa. But I thought it was interesting that Conte decided to start Vanja, because the reports in the media were that Meret had recovered from the minor injury he picked up, during the week. But it clearly proved to be the right decision.
Yeah, all week too. Like, they kept mentioning how, like, oh, Meret's good. Like, so when I saw that Vanja was starting, even with me wanting him to start, I was like kind of surprised, because, even though I can understand the game plan, and, how we've discussed, and even we've, like, Ben has mentioned many times that, in a game against Man City, you want the long ball, and, a goalie like him that can make it happen. So, I understood it, but I was still, surprised by the decision. But, like you said, he was, while player ratings aren't the biggest thing, to really base anything off of, especially, in a game like this. But he was one of the highest, rated players in the match. And, we had a 2-0 loss where everyone is praising Milinkovic-Savic, and even throughout the game, to mention the commentators, I hate our commentators. We won't get into that, but that's like a thing. Like, there's a commentator, these
your two biggest beefs are the commentators and the fact that CBS can't figure out how to set up a fantasy soccer league.
These are topics that we could go on all day, but it was Tony Meola, right? Like, very valued voice of soccer. Yeah, he mentioned, like, oh, I can't really, and this was like fairly early on in the game. Like, I want to say, couldn't have been before later than the 60th minute. And he had said, like, how Meret is 2 times Scudetto winner, but I can't, it's hard to imagine, considering the game that's occurring right now and what Milinkovic-Savic is doing, that, Meret will get back into the net, especially in games that have that much meaning, right? Like, this weekend against Pisa, it could go either way. Conte might think of consistency and saying let Vanja keep it going, or he might say, all right, like, Meret, get in there and defend this good effort, right? So, like you said, like, I don't want to make it, it's fun. Meret versus Milinkovic-Savic, it's fun, right? Like, you got to do it, because that's just the nature of it. Like, that's the one position on the field that's completely 1-for-1. Like, it's not like, you can't take out Politano for one of the goalies or whatever, like that's it. It's goalie versus goalie. So, Milinkovic-Savic is the guy that, I really do like, and I'm a fan of, before he was a Napoli player. So it's definitely good to have him. And, I think we're going to see a lot more of him. He really is, the type of goalie build that you do want now in the modern game. He's good with his feet. He comes out. He won every aerial duel that he had this match. So, you can appreciate a goalie like that, and he's scary as hell. There's one image I think I shared with everyone that, even our players are like, oh my god, like, no. Like, so, you can appreciate that. So, like, I like that, and I'm really, excited for that, because I feel like that's like something that we've always missed, like a very, gigantic, commanding goalie that fits the new game.
When I used to hear Conte say, like, I'm going to pick the keeper that makes the most sense depending on the opponent, I would think, like, that makes no sense to me, right? Like, maybe in other positions, a striker or something, you may want a tall guy that can win aerial duels versus a speed guy or something. But after watching this match, I was like, you know what, Vanya really was the right matchup, the right goalkeeper for this matchup, because Holland is such a big guy and he's great in the air. So you really do want someone who's a bit more aggressive, can come out and he had a couple of really big punches in the first half. He caught a cross. And then, like an added bonus, I don't think you ever want you ever don't want a tall goalkeeper really, but like those 3 or 4 saves that he made in late in the first half were almost entirely because of his length, right? Like I just don't. Even if obviously Meret is tall, all goalkeepers are tall, but Vanya's that much taller that like he's stretching to make saves that the ball might hit the post and go in. Like that's how much he had to reach. So it turned out to be the right decision. You make a good point on the consistency, because in my mind, I had Meret kind of just pegged to be starting this match, but we don't have a midweek. It's one of these rare weeks this season where we don't have a midweek fixture, and then we have Milan. So I definitely want Vanya playing against Milan. Do I want him to be like on 10 days rest for that? Maybe I want him to start against Pisa as well, just to be in that rhythm. So there's an argument to be made. But yeah, the only reason I say I don't want to make this a Meret Vanya thing is really just because I think Vanya deserves all the credit just on his own, right? He just earned it with that performance. So
yeah,
it'll be really interesting to see how that kind of plays out. Again, I think Conte has enough command of the players and it commands enough respect from the players that regardless of who he decides to start, I don't think it's going to become a thing. Just like it wasn't a thing for De Bruyne coming off. That's also De Bruyne just being such a class player on and off the pitch and so smart that he understood the situation and he didn't make a big deal of it. Apparently, we didn't talk about this, but Lorenzo apologized and all that stuff. So, but that's actually a good segue to what I want to ask you about next, which is, in a weird way, does this result and really more so this performance make Napoli better or stronger than they were heading before this match happened?
Yeah, we touched on it a little, and I do think that this is a motivational loss. Where they learned a lot, and they learned that they can still play together and not completely fall apart. Because all things considered, those 2 goals that happened, we didn't really talk about them so much. Like that second goal, this guy Jeremy Doku, what the hell do you do about that? What do
Yeah.
you do about that? Like, that's a crazy goal. Like, this guy, completely just bobbed and weaved right through us. And what's kind of scary is that he did that exact move on the opposite side of the box against Manchester City in his game prior. And they even
Or
mentioned
against United.
yeah, against United. And it's like, this is crazy. That this guy is, you know, I guess you could think of it like this move is now like what his version of being Arjen Robben, where this is gonna happen and can stop it because he's so fast and has such great control that it's a goal or an assist if he pulls this off. Like that was scary. And you really can't blame defenders or goalies in that situation because that's just a wonder goal. Like that's a goal that when we had Bada, you saw that and you're just like there's nothing you could do. Nothing. The the first goal, it was kind of like an odd play, like very quick, and Holland is just is too good in that situation. But it didn't. Those I guess what I'm trying to say is those 2 goals, and especially the second one, they didn't throw us off that that much. Like we kind of still maintain the same mentality of holding the line, playing defense and trying to win the ball back and just working hard. And we unfortunately weren't able to get like one real counter or chance. Like there might have been one or two situations, but like it kind of fell flat right away. And I guess that's the counter argument to Lobotka versus De Bruyne. Like if De Bruyne was in, he has the eye and the foot that if Hoyland was making a run or in a position, maybe he could have set him free. But I do think that still is a good decision, pulling him, and we were able to keep our heads, and only going down 2-0 to City with 10. I think they could come out of that with their heads up. Di Lorenzo's owning it as the captain. We're gonna bury Pisa this week. If you're willing to bet, I would bet, that De Bruyne's going to score a goal and probably humiliate half of every player that steps in his way in Pisa. So it
Yeah,
should be fun.
I looked up like the transfer spend and the salaries, and it's like City in the last 5 seasons or over the last 5 seasons have spent like literally €1 billion on transfers. Mind you, they've also generated about 600 million on sales, so still a net transfer spend of 400 million euros in 5 seasons, and their total annual salaries, I think it was around 240 million. I mean,
they're serial winners in their league. They've won the Champions League within the last, what has it been? Within the last 5 years, they've won.
They've got one of the best coaches ever. Pep actually said that he's been pushing Doku to attack more because he has this insane burst from like a standstill, right? Just push the ball and go, and it's literally impossible to defend.
That was actually a robot move. Like that was like something that like people would do in FIFA, and you're just like, that's not real.
Yeah, it's a bot. Yeah. Well, he basically like first he just absolutely destroyed. I think it was Lobotka and maybe Spinazzola or one other player just with his turn. Or Anguissa, yeah, where he just turned and they were
Beukema
didn't know what to do, and then the dribble between the two defenders as well, and then also player, the shot too.
His own player too was in the middle of that. It wasn't even like it was just two Napoli defenders. Like there
was more traffic.
Legs. He went through 6 legs like in that one motion. It was crazy.
Yeah, and then to your point, like both of those goals, you wouldn't say like we really made much of a mistake. We just got beat by really, really talented players, right? They beat us more than we conceded in a way. And beyond that, again, we had those saves from Vanja, but we really didn't give up a whole lot. Okay, fine. With that lead and with an extra man, they probably spent more time just keeping possession. And like I think the final possession numbers were like 69% to 31%. But Conte said it after the match. Actually, it was interesting because he said he was actually angry after the Fiorentina match for the last 10 minutes that we gave up, even though we won quite convincingly. Whereas he really had no negatives to report from this match. He did say, I guess, from a just sort of tactical analysis of that second goal, that the mistake we made was pressing high on the throw-in, which I guess you can say put us out of position a little bit. I don't think it had that big of an impact, but his point was that like given the circumstances, we need to be aware, and it was kind of like we were playing the same way we always play, except we were down a man, and against a team like City, they can hurt you. Otherwise, he talked about the maturity of the team. He talked about the desire, the awareness. He said also that we could have easily just kind of given up on the match and conceded 5 or 6 goals and been humiliated. And that's important too, to take home. Nobody wants to lose, let's be honest. Like I don't know if there is such thing as like a good loss. Maybe you can call it a respectable defeat. Again, like you said, had you been asked before the match, would you be shocked if City won this game 2-0? You probably would have said, not really. It's home. City's home. It's one of the best teams in the world. So to do that with 10 men, and where is obviously, something you can live with. But yeah, I actually think we're coming away stronger from this match because we really saw this kind of like team bond and the way they still fought and defended for their lives as if it was a 0-0 game the way they were defending, because we really didn't create any chances. But who knows? And to your point, maybe if De Bruyne was still on, like we had Neres and Elmas on the field, so we had a lot more pace. And there were actually a couple of moments where I feel like they missed a couple of passes where they played the wrong ball or played it a little behind that we might have even gotten a couple of chances. But again, against City, I think expectations are pretty low. It's our most difficult match in the entire league phase of the Champions League. There's still 7 more to go. It's probably not going to change the outcome of the league phase for us anyways.
They were beating on us at that point, and honestly, like the goals, when you like just look at the goals themselves under the microscope, they're not goals that occurred because we had 10 men. Like you're not looking at those goals and thinking Napoli are down a man. Like, like they were, they just found the hole. They were, pause. But they they just found their opening. They were, kind of just peppering us and, kind of attacking relentlessly, and we were doing great shutting them down and, making them reset. But, they had those 2 opportunities and they scored. I think they only had like, out of the 20 some odd shots they took, they only had, I think, less than 9 or less than 8 shots on target total. So, I think there's a lot of positives to take away. And I think every single one of the players on Napoli's staff, they all know, had that red card not occurred, this is a completely different thing. And I think that's why they're walking away from this, feeling maybe better, because they have the confidence to say, this would have been a different game had we, not lost our captain and a player, in one. So, I don't think we have anything to, be beat up over about this. It's unfortunate, but it's okay.
Yeah, 7 shots on target. So not bad.
They had like 700 passes. So, for every 100 some odd passes, they took a shot. Right? Was it 700 passes? More or less.
Yeah, I did. I'm scared to even look that up. Like a Pep team with an extra man.
It was like 700 something or like 200 something.
And, yeah, that makes sense.
7 shots on target. That's
well, Pep he was very complimentary to Napoli. Actually, every interview I saw with City players, they all said, what a difficult match it was for them. And again, this is one of the best teams in the world playing against 10 men. And Pep talked about that. He talked about Italian defending in general, because City played against Inter last year, and I think it was a 0-0 draw or whatever.
He always speaks sweetly about Italy.
Well, he played in Serie A, didn't he? So, yeah. But he's always got this kind of like, I guess maybe seems more genuine after a match. Before a match, it's like, are you just trying to like mess with our minds here? Like, what kind of Jedi mind tricks are you pulling on us right now? but no, I don't know if it was just a translation, because I saw a quote, but I couldn't find the actual interview. Maybe it was like on the touchlines, but there was even one where I thought I saw a quote of him saying that like he has yet to get his own team to play with that kind of discipline that he saw Napoli playing with, just the way everybody was playing in their positions. And again, coming from him, like that is quite the compliment. Maybe he's just, like you said, he always talks sweetly about Italian clubs.
It annoys me. It's like, oh, I wish my team had that much discipline. It's like, you won 2-0, bro. Like,
Yeah. And by the way, you ruined football too.
Yeah, what the hell? Like, shut up.
So it's our first defeat of the season. Obviously, we're recording this on Sunday night, so there's not that much time before the Pisa match. Who knows? By the time you hear this, maybe that game's already been played. But now we have to go back and play against Pisa. The reports, if maybe we can just wrap it up here with a quick, very very quick. This is like on the spot preview of the Pisa match, but there are quite a few reports that we could see some pretty heavy rotation from Conte here. Do you think that'll really change anything? I mean, it's Pisa, newly promoted side. I don't want to take anyone for granted, but even with rotation, you would expect to win this match, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the rotation, and is this home or away? I can't remember.
I think it is away, but I will check.
So even I think it is. That's why we're playing Monday, and because that was also what Alvino kind of said to what's his name?
Oh, it's a home match actually. Yeah, it's
home.
Yep.
Nice, cool. All right, that's good once in a while. But I guess what I'll say is with rotation, this is a different team now with rotation. We got guys like Neres, Gilmore, Luca, and possibly Gutierrez. I know I've been, kind of a broken record, and saying to you guys offline, I'd really love, to see some minutes from him, even if it is as a substitute. So, there's not one guy in Pisa that makes our squad. Every single player on Napoli bench and starts on Pisa. We should win this match comfortably. But I've seen also some conflicting reports, like where, like you said, there's going to be rotation, but then like maybe not so much. Like I've seen where they've said, kind of the defense remains the same. Di Lorenzo will play because he's rested in a way. That De Bruyne is obviously going to play because he's ready to just beat up on. He's ready to just beat up on Pisa right now. So he's going to get.
And he only played 20 minutes, so he really is rested.
And I'm curious, though, like similar to the Vanja thing, Højlund, because this guy walked onto the team, showed up from Manchester, not playing, and he's just banked like right on the lineup. And we've spoken about this, but like he kind of blends right in. So I'm curious if he's going to get the consistency as well. Or
I think Luca is going to start, only because the difference, like while I get the consistency argument, Højlund already just played 2 games and short rest.
Yeah.
I know we had like 5 days, so it's not super.
But Luca too, he's going to beat up on Pisa. I feel like because he's going to want to prove.
Oh yeah, for sure, he's got something to prove, right? He's trying to.
He's going to see just blood in the water, and curious if maybe Politano finally gets some rest. And
yeah, I have seen. Well, it's the other side. Well, who knows? Because Neres spent a lot of time in the preseason playing on the right.
Yeah.
And there have been a lot of reports that he's going to start in this match. So who knows? Maybe he starts on the right wing for Politano, but he could also play on the left. We haven't seen much of Noah Lang, which is curious. I think he's kind of getting the Neres treatment right now, where it's like. But he's barely even coming off the bench. Like Neres was coming off the bench fairly regularly.
Maybe not start, but sometime I think it would be nice for him.
Yeah, but I do think we're still going to have a number of players. Like they're saying, as you said, Di Lorenzo will play. I'm expecting the same center back pairing, obviously with Rachmani hurt. Beukema is going to play. I was kind of expecting Juan Jesus to play, but
I wouldn't mind it, honestly, to tell the truth.
Yeah. Buongiorno still, I'm hesitant to overuse him. But maybe, Jesus came into that match pretty early as well, so he's not super rested. But again, it doesn't really matter. And Gisa and Lobotka, they just basically play every single game.
Anyways. Yeah, right. They're Iron Man. It's crazy.
And now, there is
Gilmore. Like they've been saying Gilmore.
Yeah, I'd love to see Gilmore play.
He's going to start. You have to imagine they're going to give Lobotka some rest. I'm curious, McTominay, for the sake of Vostri Cavani, my fantasy team. I definitely would love for him to start because I need some magic to win this week. But yeah, I'm definitely curious. Like I would love if once we hop offline that we could know what the lineup would be. But I guess we'll just have to wait till like 10 minutes before the match.
Yeah, I mean there is a little bit of pressure on us because well, Juve dropped points, but Milan won, Roma won, Atalanta won convincingly. So we'll see. It's funny because you mentioned the Juve complaints earlier. I don't know if you saw Tudor's comments after you drew. Yeah. Oh, Napoli gets to play 3 games in 9 days.
We had to go to London, and then we flew home at midnight. Like what the hell?
Yeah.
Give me a break.
I mean, this is the classic. He really is a true Juventino, I think. So.
Yeah, through and through, but he's not going to be there long.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. He's had a good start, but I mean, in any event, I'm really, really hoping. It's unfortunate there's not going to be a pre-match press conference, but I would have loved for someone to ask Conte what he thought about Tudor's comments, because if there's anyone Conte practically invented this. So you're not gonna beat him.
Sadi is a good second fiddle to that. Like he would love to complain about the schedule. He was the worst.
Yeah. Like I was actually gonna quote tweet, one of these, like IFTV or whoever, one of these guys that quoted Tudor, and I was just gonna write, "Ma che significa?" Just because, again, Conte can handle that, no problem. But I think, we don't need to make predictions. I think we both expect Napoli to win this match. Hopefully we do, and we both get back on track in terms of winning, and, of course, stay on top of the table. Let's wrap it up there, Gianluca, but thank you so much for coming on.
No, of course, it's always a pleasure, and obviously there's a lot to talk about. Unfortunately, it wasn't about a win, but like you had said, there's definitely a lot of positives to take, and definitely hope we could take it out on Pisa and make them regret coming to the A division and having to deal with us. So hopefully we could get our 3 points and focus on Milan.
Yeah, exactly. So you can find Gianluca on X at Gianluca617. You can find me on X at Joe_Fischetti5, and you can find the podcast at Forza Napoli Pod. If you're watching on YouTube and you want to listen to the audio version, you can find it on all the usual podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, and so on. And if you're listening, you can find the podcast on YouTube and get the beautiful visuals of us. I didn't throw up any graphics for this one, so it's literally just us talking, but maybe I'll edit in a couple of images. But you can find the podcast at Forza Napoli Podcast. If you do check it out, please do like and subscribe. That also helps the algorithm get it out to other people. So I will be back hopefully at some point during the week to talk about that Pisa match, maybe a quick preview of the Milan match as well. But until then, I'm Joe Fischetti. Forza Napoli sempre.
Sempre.